Revealed, the Sinister rules night guards must follow at the haunted Dollar General in Savannah. Charlie took a deep breath as she stepped into the dimly lit Dollar General, the flickering overhead lights buzzing ominously overhead. She had accepted the night shift out of desperation, a struggling single mother, recently divorced, fighting to keep her 2 kids fed and sheltered. The door creaked shut behind her, sealing the world outside and the violent storm that raged like a beast unleashed. She pushed her worries deep down and walked into the aisle, trolley in hand, ready to tackle the night and catch up on bills. The silence settled around her, a thick fog of unease mingling with the scent of stale snacks and cheap cleaning supplies. Charlie felt the cold sweat prickling at her neck. But she shook it off, until a soft thud echoed from somewhere in the stockroom. It made her heart race, pulsing against her ribs like a war drum. Hushed whispers brushed past her ears, indistinct yet urgent, as if secrets from the past awaited her there. "Get it together," she muttered under her breath. Gripping the trolley tighter, she wandered through the aisles, giving in to the unsettling feeling that this place was alive with eyes watching from shelves lined with mundane household products. Behind the rows of cheap toys and holiday decorations, the storm outside released a torrent of rain. She glanced at her phone, no signal. Panic was starting to creep in. Dismissing the noises again, she moved further, then, tucked between an old box of plastic ornaments, she found a crumpled note, its edges frayed. The writing was shaky, almost frantic. "The darkness watches. If you hear whispers, answer. But don't speak their name. Follow the light, don't turn away." A chill washed over her. What was happening here? Suddenly, the lights above flickered, plunging her into eerie moments of complete darkness. For a heartbeat, her world vanished. Breathing heavily, she checked the security monitors, her heart hammering in her chest. In one corner of the screen, a shadow moved. No, it was more than just an odd reflection. A figure, slinking through the empty aisles, barely visible but there, undeniable. Before she could rationalize it, unusual shadows cast by the flickering light. Her heart sank as the storm intensified. The walls felt like they were closing in. Desperation clawed at her, forcing her to remember the rumors, the dark stories whispered among locals. A child who vanished from this very store decades ago, said to haunt the aisles still. Just then, darkness fell over the store in a sudden power surge. Charlie lunged for the phone, her pulse racing static. No connection. Fear gripped her, and she felt utterly alone. "Please, please let my kids be okay," she whispered into the void. Trembling, she reconsidered the shadows, the tantalizing, echoing laughter she thought she recognized as her children's mixed with the darkness surrounding her. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." As the laughter echoed, the shadows began to dance closer, creeping along the aisles. Her breath was shallow, her instincts igniting like fire. Was this just a trick of her mind, or something deeper feeding off her fear? Her hands were clammy, fingers trembling as dread wrapped around her like a vice. The walls of the store, once so familiar, now loomed with dark possibilities, secret treachery lurking beneath its bargain prices. Charlie forced herself to fight back. "I can't let them take me," she thought. But the question hung heavily in the air: who was watching, and what did they want? She felt the weight of the night promising haunting truths yet unacknowledged. The boundaries between the store, the whispers, and the shadows began to blur. What would wait for her behind those shelves? As the storm raged outside and the lights flickered in and out, she understood that her fight had only just begun. The overhead lights buzzed erratically, illuminating moments of silence that screamed at Charlie. She pressed her back against the cool metal of the trolley, trying to steady her breathing as the laughter faded into the shadows. They were still there, lurking. She felt their eyes, all of them bearing down on her, judging, waiting. Determined, she began to move, each step hesitant, her heart pounding in her ears. The aisles seemed to twist and elongate as though the store itself conspired to twist time and space at will. "Just find the light," she whispered shakily to herself, recalling the note's unspecific guidance. But where? Each flicker of the lights felt like a taunt, each shadow a challenge to her sanity. She made her way toward the back of the store, where the stockroom waited like a hungry beast. The thuds and the whispers grew louder. Pushing through the plastic drapes that hung over the stockroom entrance, a rush of stale air hit her, heavy with the scent of forgotten things. Boxes were strewn haphazardly, as if someone had been rifling through them, searching for something desperately. The warm glow of a dim overhead bulb barely illuminated the room. Charlie spotted a break room door slightly ajar. A flicker of light peeked out from within, a beacon in the encroaching darkness. Her chest tightened at the thought of facing whatever could be inside, but she was drawn forward, fighting tooth and nail against the tide of fear clawing at her. Gingerly, she pushed the door open, revealing a small room cluttered with rusting appliances and mismatched furniture. But it was the figure in the corner that drew her attention. A little girl sat there, her back to Charlie. Dressed in a faded blue dress, her dark hair hung around her shoulders like tendrils of smoke. The girl's fingers traced the contours of a reflection in a cracked mirror. "Hey," Charlie's voice trembled. "Are you okay?" The girl's head snapped around. Eyes wide and gleaming, filled with an unnatural light, they felt like empty voids. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice echoing against the peeling walls. "They don't want you to find out." Charlie felt her stomach drop. "Find out what?" she questioned, desperation rising in her throat like bile. "What's happening here?" The girl crawled back slightly, her gaze fixated on something behind Charlie. The shadows in the room thickened, drawing together as figures began to manifest. Tall, gaunt shapes with hollow eyes and twisted features materialized, blocking the exit. Charlie's instincts surged, her body flooded with a primal urge to flee. "Leave! You don't belong!" the girl cried, her voice mingling with the rising tempest of whispers that filled the air like a cacophony of lost souls. Cold dread washed over Charlie as her eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape. The darkness grew more oppressive, suffocating her. Whispers raced through the room, echoing warnings and riddles, a language of anguish woven centuries deep. "Follow the light," she mumbled, remembering the urgency embedded in the note. But where was the light now? The exit loomed, engulfed in shadow as the dark figures advanced. Panic exploded within her, a visceral reaction that demanded she run. But the little girl's voice stopped her in instants. "You must listen. They will take you if you turn away." Charlie hesitated. The thought of losing everything to the dark was more terrifying than facing whatever awaited her in that moment. Clenching her fists, she whispered, "What do I do?" As the shadows reached for her, a single flickering light bulb above burst, illuminating a path toward the back exit. The girl pointed toward it urgently, eyes wide with fear. "Go. Now." Fueled by adrenaline, Charlie obeyed. She burst toward the light, heart pounding, desperate for escape. But the walls seemed to stretch, and the shadows lunged. Were they trying to pull her back into the void? Just when she thought she might make it, a grip like ice seized her ankle. She screamed, the sound swallowed by the crushing darkness. The last thing she saw was the cold emptiness of the girl's eyes and the countless whispers crashing like waves against her mind. What awaited Charlie beyond the veil of shadows? Was escape merely another trick of the haunted store? As the chaos surged, she understood that leaving the store was only the beginning of the terror. Charlie felt the darkness clawing at her, pulling her deeper into an abyss that oozed despair. She screamed, futilely kicking at the entity that gripped her ankle, but it was as if the shadows themselves had come alive, twisting and darting around her like vipers poised to strike. Heart racing, she struggled against the frigid hold, every ounce of her fighting spirit igniting a desperate will to survive. Just as she thought she might be dragged into the murky depths of the darkness, the grip loosened. With a final shove, Charlie broke free, propelled by sheer panic and the flickering light ahead. The exit gleamed brighter now, almost taunting her, as if daring her to escape. She dove toward it, the relentless shadows reaching for her, fingers of night stretching and curling in a serpent-like dance. The dim light of the stockroom gave way to a breath of fresh air that had never felt more precious. Tumbling through the threshold, she landed hard on cold concrete. Her skin prickled with goosebumps. She was out, yet somehow she sensed that the night had only begun. Gasping, Charlie scrambled to her feet and turned to face the entrance. The little girl's ghostly visage flickered in her memory, eyes wide with a warning, as the shadows coalesced behind her. The dim light of the break room faded, and the darkness around the stockroom entrance now pulsed with a life of its own. The whispers echoed, ricocheting off the walls. "You should have listened." Adrenaline surged, and she took off through the stockroom, each step feeling like running through thick syrup. Boxes towered around her like crypts, some toppling as she brushed against them, sending a cascade of supplies crashing to the floor. Panting, she reached the back of the store, where the exit doors loomed like a gateway to salvation. With each heaving breath, she reached for the handle, an icy dread tightening her chest. The moment her fingers touched the cool metal, a violent shudder rattled through the floor beneath her feet. The lights overhead flickered in protest, crawling shadows momentarily retreating as if bracing themselves for something malevolent. "Get out!" A voice roared behind her, sending ice through her veins. It was the little girl's voice, distorted and twisted, reverberating through the air. Charlie whirled, eyes wide, but found only darkness billowing like a storm cloud. The shadows advanced, tightening the noose around her as despair threatened to swallow her whole. She pushed through the door, bursting into the night air. The parking lot was empty, quiet, too quiet, and the faint glow of streetlights struggled against the horizon. Pain and confusion crashed over her like the tide. Had she truly escaped, or was this merely another trap? Suddenly, the distant laughter returned, sharp and serrated, cutting through the stillness. Chills gripped her spine as she turned, desperately scanning the shadows. Her thoughts swirled, a tempest of questions. Who were the figures that haunted the stockroom? What had the girl meant about the darkness wanting her? With trembling hands, Charlie fished out the crumpled note. Heart pounding, she read the frantic scribbles again, searching for insight. Follow the light. But what if the shadows weren't finished with her yet? What if escape only led her deeper into their game? As her gaze settled on the darkened store's entrance behind her, she felt the pull of something sinister lurking just beyond the threshold. Fear surged anew, feeding an unsettling instinct. Something was watching. And whatever waited beyond the edges of the light wouldn't let her go that easily. Charlie turned to run, only to hear an unsettling truth echoing in the back of her mind. She would have to return. What secrets lay in the depths of that cursed store? And would she have the strength to confront them once more? Charlie propelled herself away from the store, tears blurring her vision. She sprinted across the empty parking lot, heart hammering, blood roaring in her ears. Each breath felt like a struggle, as if the night itself were trying to choke the air from her lungs. She didn't dare look back. She simply ran, as if the shadows from the store were hot on her heels, grasping for her collar, hungry for a taste of her fear. But freedom wasn't simple. Her feet pounded against the pavement as she veered toward the street. The world outside was eerily vacant. No cars, no pedestrians, just the dim streetlights flickering like taunting stars. Charlie felt exposed, a target in a field of shadows. The streetlight beside her blinked out. Darkness swirled once more. Charlie, a whisper curled around her name, so soft yet so close it sent icy fingers crawling up her spine, nipping at her resolve. You have to come back. She squeezed her eyes shut, shaking her head, desperation clawing at her mind. But it was the same voice, the girl's voice, filled with urgency, echoing with the desperation of 1,000 warnings. Please listen. With a force that felt unnatural, her legs propelled her down the street instead of away. Panic painted her vision red as her terrified heart threatened to leap from her chest. Why was she returning? She didn't want to go back. It was the last thing she needed. Yet her feet moved of their own accord, guided by something unexplainable, torn between instinct and fear, Charlie stumbled down the cracked sidewalk, finding herself at the very door from which she had escaped. It loomed over her like a gaping mouth, the edges jagged and dark. The whisper intensified, wrapping around her like an inescapable net. "You must know the truth." An icy gust of wind swept through the entrance, pooling around her ankles like tendrils of smoke. Charlie hesitated, swallowing hard. Was it courage that propelled her inside, or mere curiosity teasing her edges? The very thought of stepping back into the darkness filled her with dread, but a more profound force beckoned her forward, compounding her fear and intrigue. As she stepped through the doorway, her pulse quickened. The stockroom unfolded before her, familiar yet laced with an air of puzzles yet unsolved. The shadows loomed as if they were waiting, watching. She focused her gaze ahead, and there the flickering light danced just like before, almost magnetic in its allure. Now, however, it felt different. More alive. The shadows consolidated, forming a swirling mass, almost like a living entity, as if acknowledging her presence. The whispered accusations chimed through the air, chanting, "You should have listened, you should have come back." Charlie felt a sinking dread wash over her. She felt small and insignificant, just a moth drawn to the flame. Her gut twisted. The ominous float of whispers stirred into a low groan, deep and unnerving. "What do you want from me?" she shouted, her voice trembling but firm. The shadows stirred, and for a moment, silence reigned. In that silence, a truth hung heavy in the air like smoke, promising repercussions. Suddenly, from the heart of the growing darkness, something emerged, shapes unresolved at first, morphing into clearer outlines. Faces. Hundreds of faces contorted in anguish, a sea of lost souls anchored to this realm. Charlie felt her breath hitch, heart leaping with terror. Goosebumps rippled across her skin as realization dawned. The ghosts kept here weren't just remnants, they were warnings, trapped in a cycle of despair. Every pair of eyes bore witness to her plight, pleading silently, begging for release. As the shadows stretched out toward her, desperation surged anew. She needed to find a way out. But as she turned to flee, the weight of their collective gaze made the act of escape feel insurmountable. A loud crack echoed behind her, the door slamming shut, sealing her in. No, no. What did they want? Why were they tethered to the darkness? With her back against the door, she understood. It was never just about escaping, it was about breaking a cycle. No. More running. She had to confront the truth. Charlie took a deep breath, steeling herself against the stinging fear. And then she heard it, clearer than ever before. Unlock the secret. The question now loomed heavier than the shadows. Could she unlock the darkness, or would she become one of the lost? The ground beneath Charlie felt wrong, unstable, as if it were shifting in response to her fear. She took a cautious step forward, confronting the audience of specters. Their faces were blurry but hauntingly familiar. Each expression twisted in pain, their eyes burning with unspoken truths. The air crackled with energy, each breath a sharp reminder of the tension binding them. Unlock the secret echoed in her mind, twisting into an urgent plea. What secret? Her gut twisted with fear, every instinct screaming at her to run, to hide. But curiosity competed fiercely with that instinct. Maybe the truth could set them all free. Moving deeper into the stockroom, she felt the temperature drop. It was a biting cold, just like the chill of dread that had settled in her core. Shadows danced like phantoms around her, growing thicker, heavier. She shivered, rubbing her arms against the icy tendrils reaching toward her, trying to keep her own warmth alive. "Where are you?" she whispered, the words barely escaping her lips as the whispers seemed to coil tighter around her. "What do you want?" The faces sharpened, and one flickered to the forefront, a young girl no older than 12 staring at her with wide, pleading eyes. Charlie's heart broke at the sight. This was the girl from her dreams. She had seen her before. "Find it," the girl mouthed, her words drowned by the cacophony of despair, eyes locked in a desperate plea. "The key." Charlie echoed, glancing around. Shadows receded, revealing shelves laden with mysterious objects wrapped in layers of dust. Among them lay what looked like an old journal, leather-bound and weathered. Its spine cracked as if yearning to be opened. She reached for it, drawn like a magnet. The moment her fingertips brushed the cover, the shadows recoiled, gasping, as if the sight of the journal brought them agony. It felt heavier than it should, cold against her skin, but a strange warmth emanated from within. The whispers turned to a discordant hum, vibrating through the air, swirling around her, desperate and chaotic. With trembling hands, she opened the journal. Unearthed memories spilled out, ink bleeding onto the pages, revealing stories of loss, despair, each a thread woven into the fabric of this cursed place. Names, dates, victims of the night, caught in a loop. Charlie kept reading. Every name felt like a weight pushing down on her, suffocating her with a sense of responsibility. She flipped through more pages, blood pounding in her ears. A pattern emerged. Those who had disappeared were linked, bound by something grotesque, something that transcended time and space. The realization hit her like a sucker punch. They were not just victims, they were sacrifices made to protect the living. No, this can't be true, she gasped, horror gripping her heart. But the truth was there, written in agony. The whispers quieted, replaced by an eerie silence as the shadows gathered ominously, drawn to the energy radiating from the journal. Charlie felt their presence closing in, suffocating. They were aware of her realization. "Unlock it or join us." The girl's voice rose above the silence, echoing with urgency. The air crackled, charged with uncertainty. Glancing back, Charlie saw the door, the only exit, still sealed tight. Panic flared, clawing at her throat. What could she do? How could she save them as they had once been? I can't be one of you," she cried out, desperation spilling into her words. But the flickering light began to fade, and the darkness stirred, shifting like an angry ocean. The specters raised their voices, a crescendo of sorrow and rage swelling around her. The door shuddered ominously. Would it open? Find the key. Charlie's heart raced as she realized what she had to do. The truth was buried in here, and if she was to break the cycle, she wouldn't escape until she unearthed it. But as she steadied herself, shadows lunged toward her, desperate to drag her down, to silence her voice. Unlock it. With renewed determination, she clung to the journal, racing against time. The secret loomed closer. Could she reveal it, or would the darkness consume her along with all the others trapped in its grasp? Charlie felt a rush of cold air, stinging on her skin, a final warning. The shadows lunged, a ravenous tide closing in, and Charlie stumbled back, flinging the journal open wide. The pages fluttered violently as if trying to flee her grasp. Memories swarmed, filling the air with a suffocating thickness. The girl's pleas echoed in her mind, a siren's call wrapped in fear and desperation. Unlock it. The words pulsed like a heartbeat. With every breath, Charlie felt the enormous weight of those vanished echoing through her. She looked down at the journal, fingers trembling over an intricate drawing that had caught her eye, a key, twisted and gnarly, intertwining with a serpent. Beneath it were the words, "Only the innocent may wield the truth." "What does that mean?" she gasped, unconsciously brushing her palm across her raw throat, tinged by fear. A guttural growl emerged from the depths of the shadows, a sound so deep it rattled her bones. The specters grew restless, their movements more frantic. "Unlock it, or join us." They circled her, blocking any hope of retreat. Charlie's heart raced, drumming in her chest like an alarm bell. She needed to understand. The significance of that key felt paramount, like a lifeline hanging in the darkest of waters. Instinctively, Charlie flipped to the back of the journal, where the pages seemed less worn, more vivid. As she read, figures of those lost seemed to float past her, silhouettes behind a veil of anguish. How many had been trapped here? "Charlie, they will harm you." The girl's voice reached out to her, soaked in urgency and loneliness. Charlie took a deep breath, swallowing the lump of terror, forcing herself to stay focused. She scanned the horrific stories. All these innocent faces mean something. A fragmented memory slipped into her mind, a park, a game, laughter, freedom, then darkness swallowing it whole. It wasn't just about the others, her own life intertwined with theirs. "Stop it!" she cried out, almost daring the shadows to challenge her. "You can't scare me." But the shadows thickened with every word, growing more agitated. Clawing fingers reached out, brushing against her skin, icy and malicious, dragging her closer to an impending darkness. She felt their pain, tasted their resentment. "Find the key!" The girl screamed again, her face a mask of dread and hope. With newfound resolve, Charlie wrested control back from the darkness. She gripped the journal tighter, daring to believe she could face the truth. If she could find this key, maybe the cycle would finally end. Then, a sharp gasp struck the air. Something solid hit the ground, rolling toward her. A simple brass key, tarnished and worn, glinted in the last remnants of light. Where it came from, she couldn't tell. "Is this?" Before she could finish the thought, a dreadful chill enveloped her like a cocoon, and the journal shook violently in her hands. A whirlwind of whispers erupted like a storm, drowning her senses. A chorus of voices begged, screamed, pleaded, all melding into a cacophony she couldn't distinguish, yet she felt each one as if it were a physical blow. Charlie crawled toward the key, heart hammering as shadows swarmed closer, their presence heavy, suffocating. This was it. This was her moment. As she picked up the key, its surface blisteringly cold against her skin, the room shuddered, echoing with a malevolent laugh. "You think you can unlock it?" The voice was deep, echoing the emptiness of the grave. "You will join us soon enough." Panic surged within her, and she slammed the journal shut, clutching the key tightly. What had she done? Would the key actually lead to freedom, or was it a bait, a trick to ensnare her? The ground trembled beneath her, dust swirling into the air, and she braced herself for what was next, knowing that the real horror lay ahead. What waited beyond that door? Would the truth set her free, or was it simply another layer of the darkness she now faced? With resolve, she took a step toward the door, key poised to plunge into fate. But was she ready for what she might unlock? Charlie stared at the door, her heart racing faster than she thought possible. The air crackled with tension, a ghostly whisper of the unknown surrounding her. What would she unleash by turning that key? What secrets lay behind a threshold that pulsed with malicious energy? The shadows writhed restlessly, a dark ocean at her feet, their whispers begging her to yield, to give in to the fear that clawed at her sanity. "You won't return," they hissed, like fog curling around her ankles. "You are one of us now." She shook her head defiantly, tightening her grip on the frigid key. She wouldn't become another lost soul. Not today. "Find the truth." The girl's voice echoed again, softer this time, a flicker of light in the engulfing dark. With a deep breath, Charlie stepped closer to the door. Her pulse thundered in her ears as reality warped around her. Shadows danced, flickering like flame against the walls. The key felt heavy in her palm, its cold surface pulsing like a living thing. "Open it." The voices surged, a chorus of chaos that sent shivers racing down her spine. "Before it's too late." Each word ignited a pulse of pure adrenaline. She didn't know what lay beyond, but something in her bones stirred, demanding she take action. She reached out, heart hammering, and paused. Did she really want to face whatever truth the key would divulge? Swallowing hard, she risked a glance behind her, hoping to catch a glimpse of the innocent faces she felt intertwined with her fate. Alas, only shadows loomed. The voices grew louder, desperate. "Unlock it." With that, she slid the key into the lock, shaking hands guiding the way. It fit snugly, as if it had waited eons for her to turn it. She took a breath, one last gasp of fleeting courage before twisting the cold metal. The door creaked open, releasing a gust of stale air that smelled of rot and despair. Dark shapes pooled beyond, silhouettes flitting in and out of view. Charlie leaned forward, curiosity entwined with trepidation. That a damp, skeletal hand shot out from the darkness, grasping her wrist. The touch was ice cold, paralyzing her in shock. "You shouldn't have come," it rasped, the voice echoing eerily in the confined space. You have to leave now. Charlie yanked her arm away, terror coursing through her veins. The shadows shifted, and she caught sight of the outlines, faces twisted in anguish, mouths open in silent screams. 1,000 wretched souls seemed to beckon her inside, through the door that should have remained locked. What are you? She stammered. Guardians of truth and lies, they murmured in unison, their voices dripping with sorrow. The innocent trapped by secrets only they can unlock what you seek. The dread pressed against her lungs, making it hard to breathe. Innocent? She echoed, confusion flooding her mind. Hadn't she fought against her own innocence all this time? The skeletal hand gripped the threshold, pulling itself just far enough to let her see the hollow sockets of its eyes, deep wells of despair. They will consume you, it warned, desperation etched into every syllable. You're not ready, Charlie. But another part of her ignited at the prospect of answers, longing to delve into the darkness and confront the demons of her past. While the shadows beckoned, the tether of fear tangled her thoughts. In that moment, she felt torn between two worlds, the horror that promised knowledge and the safety of ignorance. As doubt threaded through her mind like a dark vine, the ground shuddered beneath her once more. The door jolted, threatening to slam shut. Make your choice. The whispers screamed, their urgency wrapping around her like chains. Charlie took a step back, heart racing wildly. Should she heed their warning or dive headfirst into the abyss? Would turning back mean losing her chance to free them, and herself? The key in her palm, though still cold, ignited a flame of determination. Whatever awaited her beyond this threshold, she could not turn away. With her pulse pounding a fierce rhythm in her ears, she took one more step forward, the voices and shadows roaring around her. This was the moment where clarity must meet terror. But before she could fully comprehend the weight of her decision, the world around her began to collapse, darkness pouring in like a flood. Where would the stream of chaos carry her? What truths stood ready to pounce in the unfolding darkness? Would she emerge whole, or would she drown in secrets yet unrevealed? The darkness swallowed her, a black maw that closed tight around Charlie as a rolling wave of cold surged forth. She clawed for the edges of the doorframe, but it vanished, leaving her suspended in a void. Shadows flickered around her, distorting and buzzing like angry wasps, taunting her with their ghostly laughter. Charlie, they sang her name, a chorus of desperate whispers swirling in a broken symphony. Join us, learn our truth. Panic sliced through her, chopping her breath into ragged pieces. No. She shouted, but the word dissolved into the shadows, absorbed and forgotten. Her heart thundered as memories flashed through her mind, faces she recognized, moments she thought she'd buried. They were all there, slumped and twisted in a cruel grinning dance, tugging her deeper into the abyss. Then something grabbed her stronger than before, a force that uncoiled within the swirling dark. Seek what you fear, the voice came again, softer now but laden with dread. Seek the truth. She clenched her fists, a flicker of defiance rising. I will not be one of you. She screamed, fighting the invisible chains binding her. Let me go. The shadows recoiled, almost startled by her outburst. For a moment, the grip released, and light flickered from somewhere ahead, a dim crescent glow that pierced the fabric of the murk. It beckoned, illuminating outlines, something new waiting just beyond the swell of darkness. Taking a chance, Charlie lunged towards it, pushing off the ground and propelling herself into the light. She felt the coolness of the shadows tug at her as she broke free, hurtling into the unknown. A split second later, she stumbled into a narrow corridor, the walls lined with damp stone and filth. Gasping, she looked around. The flickering light hung above her, swinging like a pendulum. Cryptic symbols marked the walls, each more foreboding than the last. There was something familiar about them, a recognition deep inside that gnawed at her consciousness. Why are you here, Charlie? Another voice came from the end of the hall, low, melodic yet laced with malice. It sent her mind racing. Who was that? What did they know? With her heart thundering in her chest, she stepped forward. The corridor narrowed, twisting and turning with no clear end in sight. "I'm looking for the truth," she called out, her voice trembling. "What happened to the innocent? Do you really want to know?" The voice dripped with mockery, thick as honey but rotten at its core. "This place feeds on despair, my dear. The innocent. They should never have come here. The truth you seek will drown you." "No." She refused to let the darkness win. "I can't go back. I need to understand." As if in response, the shadows coalesced into dark figures, pulling from every corner of the corridor. They stepped closer, grinning, their faces twisted in sick delight. The air turned heavy, constricting her throat as they swarmed around her. Whispers surrounded her, clawing at her sanity. "Join us. Know what lies beyond." Sacrifice for knowledge. Desperation filled her, a bitter taste on her tongue. The light dimmed, flickering like a dying star. "What do I have to do?" she snapped, terror breaking her resolve into desperate sense. The central figure stepped forth, cloaked in a shadowy mist, its eyes glowing a hint of something once human. "Make a choice. Embrace your darkness, or turn away and become one of the lost." She took a step back, doubt flooding in. The path was murky, the consequences ambiguous. Just as she opened her mouth to deny their offer, a deafening scream echoed through the hallway, rattling the stones and shaking her to her core. Then she felt it, a pulse, a rhythm that drew her forward. What if this was the answer? What if this was the way to save herself and those bound by the same cursed fate? With a final surge of resolve, she faced the figure. "I won't be lost. Not today." The dark form laughed, the sound reverberating off the walls as reality warped around her. "Then let the truth unfold. Are you brave enough to face what you'll find?" As the corridor twisted and turned with a life of its own, Charlie felt a seismic shift within her, the darkness beckoning her with promises of fearsome knowledge. What awaited her at the end? Would she embrace it, or would she become another scream lost in the walls? The ground beneath her quivered, and a pulse of darkness surged forward again. Your choice defines you, and in that moment, she understood this was only the beginning. Charlie took a shaky breath. The flickering light flickered again, more fiercely now, illuminating the corridor as it twisted around her. Muffled screams echoed in the distance, an unending chorus of anguish that sent shivers racing down her spine. "This is just a dream," she whispered to herself, trying to find comfort in denial, but the reality felt too sharp, too piercing to dismiss. "Embrace your darkness," the voice taunted again, its tone sinuous and dark. Shadows danced closer, entangling her ankles, whispering words that coalesced into a dissonant symphony of horror. They licked at her skin, crawling up her legs. A soft pressure wrapped around her throat, as if unseen fingers were attempting to squeeze out her resolve. She pushed forward, stumbling through the corridor, desperate for escape. The flickering light above her sputtered violently, and the whispers surged louder, "Join us. Seek the truth." The words slithered into her ears, trying to burrow deep within her mind. "No. I want tea," Charlie shouted, her voice hoarse as she felt the tide of shadows resist her. But something in her stirred, a curiosity burned hotter than her fear. Her thoughts screamed, "What could these shadows tell me?" A surge of adrenaline pushed her onward. She reached the end of the corridor, where the dim light pooled like a small glowing lake. Before her, lay an opening, a dank, cavernous room that loomed with invisible weight, promising secrets that clung to the very air. As she crossed the threshold, the atmosphere thickened. The room was vast, stretching far beyond her sight. Shadows slithered along the periphery, reverberating as they shifted and changed. Strange objects lined the walls, faces carved from wood, all twisted in agony, baring their teeth in silent screams. Charlie stepped deeper into the room, her instinct screaming to turn back. "I need to know the truth," she reminded herself, though doubt gnawed at her. What truth could possibly be worth this torment? In the middle of the room, a pedestal rose, ancient stones intertwined with vines like tendrils of darkness. Atop it lay an open book, its pages fluttering as if breathing. Something shimmered faintly, drawing her in like a moth to a flame. She approached cautiously, her heart hammering in her chest, each footstep echoing ominously against the stone. As she reached for the book, a gust of wind whooshed through the room, knocking her back. The shadows writhed violently, their whispers turning to shrieks of rage. "Leave it. This isn't for you." Charlie scrambled to her feet and dived back, her pulse racing. "This is madness," she thought, eyes darting around for an escape. The shadows froze, and then coalesced into a singular form that towered in front of her. "What do you desire, Charlie?" The voice oozed from the shadow, a chilling calm mixed with menace. "Are you willing to pay the price for knowledge?" "What price?" she demanded, her fear morphing into defiance. "What will you take from me?" The entity leaned in, and for a moment, she thought she saw flickers of light in its darkness, fleeting glimpses of lost souls. "Your truth for their freedom," it hissed, echoing with a sinister promise. "Trade your own despair for theirs. A simple exchange." The moment hung thick in the air. Charlie's chest heaved. Could she bear the weight of their despair? Would this be the right choice? A new scream pierced through the whispers, sending icy tendrils racing down her spine. It came from behind her, a pitiful wail rising from the corners of the room. She turned to see one of the wooden faces peeling away from the wall, tears of resin streaming down its sap-streaked cheeks. "No, no, no!" Charlie gasped, her heart breaking at the sight. "This can't be real." The figure narrowed its glowing eyes on her. "Choose wisely, Charlie. The truth you seek comes at a cost. Will you save them? Or let them sink deeper?" The shadows flickered, closing in as dread filled her bones. The burden of choice weighed heavy. Back to the trap of the corridor or into the abyss of knowledge? With the cries of the tormented echoing in her ears, Charlie felt the final pull of the darkness around her, the choice stretching before her like a chasm. Would she step forward into the void, or would she turn away and remain forever lost? The shadows whispered her name, Charlie, and in that moment, the chamber trembled with the answers waiting to explode into chaos. Charlie stood in the cavernous room, heart thumping loudly like a drum line in a parade. The air felt electric, thick with tension and whispers that clawed at her mind. "Your truth for their freedom," the words echoed like a death knell, each syllable hanging heavy in the dim light. Her pulse raced as the shadows twisted around her, narrowing their blackened gaze. She could feel their silent judgment, a cacophony of trapped souls waiting for release. The flickering book on the pedestal pulsed with a strange energy, beckoning her closer. What lay within its pages could either save or damn her. "Will you save them?" The shadowy figure repeated, its voice dripping with an allure she couldn't ignore. "Or let them sink deeper?" Charlie took a step back, feeling the weight of the choice ahead of her. With each heartbeat, the cries of the lost filled her ears, layering over each other like a symphony of despair. She couldn't breathe, not with their sorrow twisting around her throat. "No," she whispered, shaking her head vehemently, trying to claw her way back to safety. Was it really worth the price? But even as she said it, she felt something stir within her, a sense of responsibility, a yearning to unleash the truth that could shatter the chains binding these tormented souls. "Must I bear all their pain?" she shouted into the oppressive void, challenge mingling with fear. "What if I can't?" "Your strength is greater than you know," the shadow replied, gliding closer like smoke. "You carry the light. Embrace it." With a trembling heart, Charlie realized she was already lost in her own fear, lost in the pain that was entwined with her past. Could she reclaim enough light to illuminate their truth? "I will do it," she declared, feeling the spark of determination igniting her courage. "But I won't go it alone." In that moment, she reached into the darkness. "I seek to share, not burden alone," she cried out, and as she did, light flickered around her, illuminating the darkness. The shadow's laughter turned to something else, a hiss of uncertainty. The book twisted as she spoke, each word igniting the energy around her. For every face etched in shadows, I will share a piece of my truth. Suddenly, she felt warmth radiate from her heart, a flicker of memories flooding back her laughter, her children's joy, the moments that made her whole. They deserved to be freed, to hold their light again. With a roar, the shadows surged forward, and for a moment, she hesitated. But she could feel the power blossom within her, and she gripped the journal, flipping its pages with urgency. Names raced past her eyes, all the lost souls, and with each name, she spoke a truth and innocent memory that flickered like stars caught in a night sky. Then came the sound of breaking glass. The shadows recoiled, swirling frantically against the brilliance that erupted around her. I do this for you. She yelled into the storm of darkness, closing her eyes to bathe in the warmth streaming through. You are free. All at once, the room trembled. Light erupted from the book, cascading into a whirlwind that engulfed her. Shadows shrieked, disintegrating into wisps of smoke, their anguished faces morphing into expressions of gratitude, smiles breaking through the despair. She opened her eyes, breathless, the room transformed, the oppressive darkness evaporated, and vibrant light flooded the space. She stood amidst the glow of countless specters, their faces now alive with joy instead of anguish, shimmering as bright as the sun. You've done it. The little girl from before appeared, radiant and free. Her eyes sparkled with an unspoken promise. You freed us. Charlie felt tears streaming down her cheeks, relief washing over her like a thick tide. Now it is time for you to return to where you belong, the girl said softly, reaching out to take her hand. But Charlie stammered. Your truth may have dark origins, but it carries your light. Go home. Cherish your life, she urged, and Charlie felt an inexorable pull toward the exit far more potent than any fear she had faced before. Glancing back, Charlie saw the remnants of shadows fading away. One last smile from the little girl, and the glimmer of hope left behind wrapped around her like a warm blanket. She felt weightless, clearer than ever before, her heart unshackled from its chains. Then the warmth poured over her as she stepped back through the threshold. She was outside now, the night alive with stars, their brilliance illuminating her path home. Sprinting with joy and laughter breaking free, she raced toward her kids, who awaited her with arms open wide, the burdens of darkness relegated to mere shadows of the past. Mommy! Their voices called, and as she held them close, she knew, with every fiber of her being, she had chosen right. This would be her light, this would be her life. And she would never allow despair to linger in her heart again. You need to subscribe now to catch our next exclusive stories. If you enjoyed this thrilling conclusion, smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. And I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how it all ended. Let us spread the light together.